It's a disgusting job. It's very dirty, a lot of blood.
So in our culture, the living people are not as important as the dead ones.
And what I remember most wasn't the gun pointing at my head. He had this machine gun, and the barrel of the machine gun was pointing right at my groin.
Wait, you do what?
The Unusual Job Show.
And we are recording. Hello friends, this is Anatoly and you are listening to The Unusual Job Show, the show where I talk to people with unusual jobs and interesting stories. My guest today is Lady Mekaella De Mure, and her job title is Professional Naked Nerd. So let me tell you, this is probably the most unusual job title we had on the show, so she definitely won that award already, and I'm getting super excited. With over 2 decades in the entertainment industry, Lady Mekaella De Mure performs fire, burlesque, nerdlesque, and sideshow acts. She's Florida's first ever title holder for Master of Nerdlesque in 2020. I watched a sample of her show and I was very impressed. I'll put a YouTube link in the show notes below so you guys can check it out, and I highly recommend you do. Today we're going to talk to Lady Mekaella about what it is to be a professional naked nerd and about all the things burlesque and nerdlesque. Let me tell you, I don't know much about it, so I'm very, very excited. So, Lady Mekaella, welcome to the show.
What a glowing introduction, Anatoly. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited because, to be honest, I don't know much about your area of entertainment industry, and that's what I really, really like in the show, to explore people with unusual jobs. And before we go deep in the weeds, for my listeners and for myself including, I want to clarify several things, if you don't mind. And
Sure.
one of them will be, can you describe what is burlesque?
So burlesque has its roots very intertwined with classical stripping. Burlesque originally was a part of the vaudeville and music era. It started out as satire and comedy and has a really rich, vibrant history. And then modern day burlesque has a lot of the same style. Modern day burlesque is very much about women empowerment, entertainment, comedy, parody. And then within burlesque is that great little niche of nerdlesque, which is pretty much cosplay burlesque or themed burlesque that is around your favorite comic book characters or your favorite video game characters or favorite pop culture references, which is a really great, almost neo-revival of the political satire of the burlesque in the vaudeville and music hall days, where a performer would come out and sing a parody song about a local politician and show a little ankle. So it's this really great, beautiful circle of life almost, and it's very interesting entertainment sub-industry that is kind of in that great vaudeville alignment with sideshow and vaudeville and circus.
Now, since you said that, it makes total sense because, yeah, if we watch old movies, there will be this ladies dancing, this interesting dances with like beautiful gowns, and they will be like have lots of makeup. So I assume this is where burlesque came from.
Yes. So if you're familiar with old black and white movies, there's one called The Night They Raided Minsky's, or The Minsky's Raid. And what that is that's a movie that's based on an actual burlesque theater that only did burlesque and showgirls that would get raided by police for indecency and doing naughty things just because women were wearing costumes and performing things with bodily agency. And then you see even very popular old school movies, like if you remember that Rita Hayworth movie where she performs Put the Blame on Mame, and she just removes that one glove. She nearly got in a lot of trouble for that, and it was nearly cut from the movie. That was considered burlesque, and it was such a simple, seductive, singular move.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple bumps and grinds that she like slips into her dancing that is also considered burlesque. So yeah, it's this great old-fashioned retro like style of entertainment.
So essentially it's doing something, I mean, I'm trying to explain to myself. So essentially, it's trying to do something a little bit over the line sexy by the current ethical norms of what sexy means in this era.
Correct.
Would that be accurate?
That's a great way to think about it. Yeah. And it also has a lot of. It's not just about the sexy. I find a lot of burlesque has a lot of great storytelling. Like there's a beginning and a middle and an end to an act. It's not just a girl coming out in a pretty costume. There's normally like really cool lyrics, or there's a beginning and a middle of the end in the storytelling. Like they're trying to find a key that they lost in their gown, or they're trying to find a tear in their stocking, so they remove their stocking. And then sometimes it's straight up political satire. Like one of my first burlesque routines I ever did was like, oh God, it was forever ago. I was very mad about an oil spill. And so my very first burlesque routine was to Toxic Love by Tim Curry, which is about pollution. And I was an oil exec, and I would get naked on stage. Well, not fully naked. I had pasties and illusion panties and many layers to make it look like I was naked. And I rolled around in fake oil and money. And I had the audience, I had a little BP logo. And I let the audience, like some audience participation that was pre-planned, where it looked like they were spanking me with dollar bills. And it was a great way for me to make fun of a company that I really had a problem with. And it was a great artistic channel for me to go, hey, this is not okay. Let's do political satire of it. And I feel like that's still a great part of what burlesque was that still survives today, which is really nice. And then another part of burlesque molded into what you now know as the modern day strip club. The modern day strip club, I've worked in modern day strip clubs. I enjoy stripping. It's a very hard hustle, but it's also a great job for women with bodily agency, and very empowering at the same time. So it's almost like burlesque took two routes. They became two different sisters, two different people, but they still work together, which is really cool. So you have burlesque and strip club work now. Both are a form of sex work. And then within burlesque, you have nerdlesque, neo-burlesque, fetish burlesque, and all these little subcategories. So yeah, it went from one tiny little subset of vaudeville to this big growing tree with all these options. And I think that's why I love it. Compared to traditional dance and traditional theater, you're not stuck. I also love that in burlesque, it's very body positive. And as a fat, openly queer woman, I found that it was the first time that I could be a performer and not have to hear, you're very talented, but you need to lose weight and get a nose job. It was the first time I got to hear, oh, wow, you're a great performer. Please come do this gig again. I'd like to book you and pay you for this. So it was really nice to see that burlesque is the first form of entertainment way before the body positivity movement to be able to do that.
Wow, I have like a million questions.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. That's great. Like what you're saying is like super cool. So, but I want to start with your first gig, your first show, or you could say your first performance when you were a BP executive, because this is really, really cool. So, but even before that, like, how did you decide to, like, what led you to get to express yourself in this very interesting art form?
I started out as a theater kid, and I was a comic book reader and a video game player. I was one of those nerdy, weird kids that nobody really got along with and picked on. So I really loved... I was that kid that was in your local drama club, but then also would make and wear costumes to like the midnight premiere of Lord of the Rings. So, and would like sneakily go to comic book conventions and stuff, but not tell anyone so I didn't get picked on. And that was before it was really cool. I'm so glad it's cool now. But yeah, I was that weird kid that liked theater, but also I liked performing and I liked art, but I also really loved nerdy things and weird comic books, and I liked history, I liked learning new things, I liked playing video games. So I guess when I was younger, I was like, oh, well, I can just go ahead and be in theater. So I tried theater for almost all of my performance life. I tried that, but I kept hitting that wall of, you're very talented, you're very good, but you need to lose weight and get a nose job if you want to be taken seriously.
Even in a theater.
Yeah, in theater, I was
Wow.
constantly dealing with that, and that's hard for a young girl to experience. Like, that's a really tough thing to say to a teenager.
Yeah, I understand.
And so I went to college for theater, and I was already doing, because I had worked at a Renaissance festival as a teenager, I had met some sideshow performers, and they're like, let's teach this girl how to do fire tricks. So I learned fire eating and fire spinning and fire dancing from these older performers, and they kind of passed it down to me. And so I ended up doing that as a job in college. I would work for nightclubs and everything and perform fire and do some sideshow stuff alongside trying to be an actress. And then eventually, after doing a ton of community theater, there was a casting call for a burlesque show. I went and said, here's my idea for an act. I can sew my own costumes. Can I do this? And I got picked for it, and I performed it. And it was the first time I had ever heard not having to change myself or anything. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is the thing. And then, so I started doing burlesque and sideshow in the nightlife entertainment industry after college, and I just kept going with it. And eventually I started getting booked for comic book conventions and after parties because these producers were saying, hey, I have this, who can do nerdy stuff? And I was one of the ones that's like, oh, I can totally do this character. I could do Deadpool. I was already dressing up for these conventions anyway because I was a fan. I was a fangirl. Yeah. I already had a Zatanna Zatara costume for when I met George Perez. I already had a Lord of the Rings costume ready to go. I just needed to make some changes for it and sparkle it up to make it stripper ready. And they were like, all right, come do these gigs. And I started doing those bookings, and eventually it became my specialty, was being able to do fire, stilts, bed of nails, but also she's a nerd. And an MC at a show said, you are the fangirl with fangirls. It's so great because you do performances that are by nerds for nerds, and you really love the characters you perform as. And so that stuck. That became a tagline, was the fangirl with fangirls. And then another MC was introduced me one night as Florida's naked nerd, and I was like, that's it. That's the perfect way to define me. And it just kind of stuck from there. I became this well-rounded entertainer that represented a lot of women who didn't see their bodies on stage normally, and represented a lot of openly queer women who didn't see themselves portrayed on stage a lot. So I started doing that, and I was also the nerd, so I became Florida's naked nerd.
So that sounds very, very empowering. Do you have lots of people coming to you and saying, you changed my life. Looking at you, I know now what's possible, and I want to pursue that career?
Actually, okay, this is going to sound so arrogant and egotistical, but yes, but I cried the whole night.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So I was producing a show in a small town in Ocala, and I had booked performers of all body types and all races and all genders, and this was about a decade ago, and I was performing as well, and I made sure that it was a very inclusive show because I wanted everybody in the audience to see themselves somewhere. And a audience member came up to me after the show, and she's like, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. And she was like, no, thank you for doing this, because I saw me on stage and you tonight. And I was like, oh. And she's like, yeah, I saw that I was allowed to be sexy, I was allowed to feel pretty, and I like that. I love that. Thank you. And I was just like, no, thank you. And I just start crying the whole drive home.
Wow. Yeah, that's very empowering. That's amazing. I think, you just changed somebody's life. That's so important.
Yeah. And so I started teaching workshops called the Burlesque for the Bedroom. And it was a body positivity class where you didn't have to take it if you wanted to be a performer. You could take it if you just wanted to have a fun night with the gal pals, or do something for you to feel good about yourself, or you could do it for your lover in the bedroom. You know, it was just a fun thing for people to do. And I found some women were coming back. I had a housewife that kept coming back, and she's like, I love this. This is the first time I've ever been able to shake my jiggle and have fun with it and feel that I am sexy. I don't have to lose weight, or I don't have to fit a certain beauty standard to be sexy. And I was like, exactly. And you're calling the shots. And she's like, I love that so much. Thank you. So that, I think those are little things, little memories that keep me going, even in the pandemic while we're shut down and we can't do shows. Those little things keep me going for sure.
Yeah, and it's so important, actually. Yeah, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this because you are raising a very, very important issue that, first of all, I want to talk about the theater. I don't really understand why would theater to like look differently at a person who has different body type or, I don't know, different appearance, because I assume theater requires all kind of roles. You don't have to be, I don't know, Juliet. You can be her friend who is different. If you have this vision of Juliet being skinny or something like that, I don't know if she was actually, I have no idea. But there's lots of different actors and lots of different roles that are important. So why would people, I don't know, make you lose weight or change your appearance? Why is that?
I think it's because it really just boils down to the patriarchy, that women are a perfect myth and they want us to fit into a beauty standard of what the mainstream media or what sells well as beauty. And I think the fact that there's a lot of typecasting where, oh, this character is a female lead and romantic interest. For anyone to believe that someone could fall in love with her at first sight, she must look like all beauty standards. She must look like what the perfect woman would be. And I feel like that's where we fall into the rut of almost internalized misogyny of how women must look a certain way to be considered attractive. And kind of like how you said, you don't have to be Juliet, you can be the nanny or her maid or her friend. There's, like, when you look at Romeo and Juliet, it's a great example that you brought it up. A lot of people would have auditions and they would cast not just someone that's good for the role that can act, but they also will look at their headshots, how they fit into their costumes. And in theater, there's this huge systematic problem of picking whoever is the prettiest, but that prettiest equals thin, white, certain shaped face, mostly Caucasian features. It's very exclusive group of women fit into that category. So there's this huge pressure in show business for women to, if they want to succeed and they want those types of roles and not get pushed into the nanny, the best friend, the comedic relief, the witch. In my experience, I was booked a lot when I was doing theater. I was doing a lot of supportive roles where I was the fat comedic relief, or I was the funny best friend, or the mother, or the witch, or the bad guy. I was never that juicy female lead, like, because it had to be the beauty standard. And I was just tired of going in that uphill battle and being told you're not enough, no matter how disciplined or talented you were. And I think a lot of women in performing arts experience that, especially in dance and theater. They feel the pressure to meet all of the demands on top of how disciplined and well-trained and how talented you could be. And it's really nice to see with the modern day body positivity movement, there's a change for that to be more inclusive, which is great. There's a change to book disabled or brown women and black women and fat women and women with tattoos and everything. So it's just really cool to see that there's a shift happening now. It just didn't happen in the beginning of my career. So I think that's why I found that burlesque was more accepting than traditional theater for me. And I wasn't trying to...
That makes total sense.
Yeah, I didn't have to appeal to it wasn't about whether or not I mean, there were plenty of gigs I've lost because I'm fat, even in burlesque. There's a lot of producers here in Florida that booked me when I was thin due to I had dramatic weight loss temporarily when I was ill, and I went from a size 14 to a size 6 in a matter of 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I was booked so much then, and I wasn't even doing good work, which is kind of frustrating. And then I regained the weight back, thankfully, because I got healthier. And I noticed the same producers weren't booking me anymore. So I noticed that I'm not saying it doesn't happen in burlesque or nightlife entertainment or vaudeville. It does indeed. It's still an issue. There's still a lot of fat phobia in show business everywhere, because that's just how it is until we as a society move away from that issue. Until we as a society are more inclusive, and we deal with that internalized, ingrained misogyny. But it's nicer that in burlesque, I know, and in Nerdlesque specifically, I know that there's always going to be a place for me no matter what my body looks like. Whereas in theater and traditional dance and even singing for some people, it's going to be the difference between whether or not they can get work is whether they fit patriarchal beauty standards.
You know what? You're totally right. I agree with you, and I think I sometimes get into this limiting mindset as well, that I try to stay away from as much as possible. So thank you for pointing that out. I completely agree that if you're a good actor or a good actress, who cares how you look? Who cares what colors your skin? You should be able to perform. You should be able to give it a chance. You should be able to shine. So,
right.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think as a society, we should stop portraying everywhere people who look the same way. If you look at the models, modern day models, they're all so skinny that it's hard to watch sometimes what this young, successful ladies have to go through just to be on this stage. And I know it's sometimes not good for health as well. If they enjoy it, it's fine, but sometimes it's just for the career, which is crazy. I really think that anyone should get a chance to be whoever they are, and we as society should support these people and do everything we can so they have an opportunity to shine, because this is the way how we can expand our minds, how we can see beyond the blindness we have, beyond what media wants us to do, and be free and really, really be creative and innovative in everything we do.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why I love vaudeville, is because there's a network of producers and performers who talk to each other a lot, and there was a serious conversation of how you look at how you produce your shows, where it's inclusive to say, if you have two performers and one is a plus size Latino or brown person and one is a thin white girl, and the minority performer is obviously stronger and better, or even equal to the thin white girl, most of the time in theater, you will find they will pick the mediocre thin white girl because she will sell better on a flyer than a minority performer that's plus size, because of that ingrained, internalized misogyny that's systematic in show business. But if we as a society move forward, we're going to see those more talented, more skilled, more well-rounded performers, and more talent, like just a better performance out of your show if you go ahead and just give the fat girl a chance, or go ahead and give the bio POC performer a chance. If you start booking with inclusivity in mind instead of automatically dismissing performers that aren't thin white girls, you're going to have more options to look at, and there's just going to be a better talent pool to pull from for entertainment. And I like seeing that shift is finally slowly happening. It sucks that it's happening now towards the end of my career or my life, but it's great that it's finally happening in my lifetime, and I'm really grateful to see a lot of show business factors and categories getting more woke about it, which is really nice.
Yeah. So let's touch on something that you just said, because my listeners will not forgive me if I don't, so I have to. You're saying that you're in the end of your career, so you're saying that, like, you
Oh
don't
no,
wanna perform
ageism
anymore?
exists. Ageism is a thing. All the time, I realize I am so much older than these 18-year-olds that are getting up on stage now. I know I'm just older, and I know that also with the pandemic, it's a little bit more hard to find gigs and to be safe about it. So it's one of those times where I've kind of taken a look at a lifetime of injuries from being on stage or performing, and then because when you're dancing and when you're entertaining, you're bound to have injuries, and then just looking at your age, and sometimes just I think it's time for me to slow down, and that's one of the reasons why I focused on writing a book. But no, I'm still performing. I'm still going to take as many gigs as I can possibly take, and I will after the pandemic for sure. But I'm older than most of my
That's good.
colleagues. I will sometimes bring up a video game that first came out. Like I brought up, what was it the other day? I was talking to another performer, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember when that came out on Sega Genesis, and they were like, what? What's that? I went, oh no. And like, I remember being a young kid when the Atari came out, and like, so.
Yeah, you're probably my age, so yeah,
Right.
I
So
feel the
it's
same
just
way.
really funny that I've been in the industry long enough to meet performers that make it very clear to me that I'm definitely not a spring chicken anymore.
And that's another issue. I think those are all the stereotypes. And I think the ageism also exists, the same as racism exists, the same as those selective hiring exists, because, well, we live
do.
longer now. Before, when I think the average performer was like 18 years old, they would live until like 40 or 50. Now we live until like 100 years. Soon we'll live until like we're 100. So we need to rethink that as well. Most of the people will be older. So if you're like in your 40s or 30s, life just starts. It's like a new 20s, at least I hope so. That's what I tell myself every day to stay positive.
I remember in show business they taught me, like back when I was doing theater, not when I was doing burlesque, but before. I remember somebody warned me. They're like, when you turn 25 or older, whenever they ask your age at auditions, always say, oh, I'm 25 plus shipping and handling. Make it a joke so that they don't think about it. So I've been saying that, and it's ingrained in me. It's something I need to unlearn to be a better feminist, I guess. But I just keep thinking like, oh yeah, I'm 25 plus shipping and handling. A lot of shipping. Freight. I'm freight. So it's something I'm trying to unlearn myself, to be more gentle and loving with myself, is to unlearn that problematic issue of how there's an obsession with youth for just women, whereas men get the phrase of aging like fine wine. Women don't get that. We have to be frozen in a certain level of youth to be considered valid or worthy. So it's something that as a society we can definitely unlearn. However, I will say in burlesque and in strip clubs, there is one amazing thing, is that we love our legends. We love making sure that our elderly can still get up on stage with us. There are burlesque dancers out there who are often praised and interviewed and brought up on stage to perform and come out of retirement, that are in their 80s and 90s even, which is really great. So there's a lot of living legends in burlesque that we look out for and we take care of. And that was one of the things I wanted to do now that I'm towards the end of my career, is I wanted to take time to interview and record their oral histories and get to know them more and make sure that their stories are preserved. So I've been recording and interviewing living legends and asking them about their experiences as burlesque dancers and strippers with the police and with their lives, and what got them into taking their clothes off for many, and what weird things that they like. And I've been making transcripts and saving the audio to donate to museums in their area, so that they will be remembered even long after they're gone. But I would prefer for them to be remembered and known now. So that's a side project that I'm working on during the pandemic, was making sure that I could record that and get those interviews with them.
Yeah, it's such an important thing to keep the history. Otherwise, you might think, well, everything is so easy and we're here where we are just because, and then you forget. And then, yeah, if you sort of keep the history, then at least people can see what you
Right.
have to go through to get where you are now, which
And
is
new
very, very important.
showgirls and new cosplayers, I think they take for granted that they can put together a costume and go dance next to a pool in public right now, when some of the women I've interviewed have spent nights in jail just to change the law so that women could wear the costumes that we wear today. And I feel like
Yeah.
if we don't remember that, it's a slap in the face to the women that trailblazed before us. I remember I interviewed Viva La Fever, and she talked about like this system that they had with a light backstage. They knew when the cops were coming in to raid their shows. And the girls would just line
wow.
up, and they'd be like, okay, we'll cover your bail. Who wants to get arrested tonight so that we can keep fighting this law? And so the venue owners would
Wow.
bail the girls out after they had a night in jail, and they would they would be in court, and they would just keep fighting to change this law. And
That's crazy.
now in those cities, there's a lot more agency available for women if they want to work in a strip club or go to a pool. If they want to be seen in public, there's actually still places in even counties here in Florida where it's illegal to wear, for women specifically, not men, to wear swimwear that shows underboob or or like the sides of your butt cheeks. There's counties in the United
What?
States where I
That's
have to
crazy.
look up laws before I perform there so that I know, okay, this county requires 3 fingers of fabric in the front and 2 fingers of fabric in the back. So I have to wear a particular type of thong on stage. So there's still laws that exist, and there's still raids that happen. There's still arrests that happen, and I think modern day performers don't realize the fight to get here where we are. So it's really, I wanted to make sure that I talked to some elderly performers and get their histories on that, or look them up if they already passed. So yeah.
That's completely crazy. Yeah, I mean, such a long walk to freedom, I guess, as with everything that happens. I want to rewind the clock again because I'll be jumping back and forth, but lots of interesting stuff that you said I still want to uncover. First one is, well, when you was starting out, you said that you were overweight, and I guess a lot of things come from this. People sometimes feel insecure when they're overweight. So how did you get from being a little bit insecure, a little bit nerdy, to stripping? Because this is very revealing. You need to be very expressive. And was it, or you remember your first time stripping, and how do you prepare for this? How did you feel? What was it like?
Oh God, I think I was definitely nervous, but I'm nervous every time I go on stage. I say that if you don't have butterflies before you go on stage, no matter what kind of performance you do, you're obviously going to mess up, because it's healthy to be nervous. But I was very nervous. I didn't want, I hid it from my family. I didn't want them to find out. They're very conservative. And I hid it from my job. I didn't want my job to find out because I didn't want to get fired from it, because at the time I had a day job as well. And I don't know, there was just something pulling me from my gut to do it. And I got out there, I did my jiggle, I did my funny bits, because I really love to make people laugh. And I think that was my end goal, was like, I'm going to have something to say that has a message. I'm going to make people laugh with that message still. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm fueled by spite, because so many people in my career were like, you're not going to get fired as a performer, and spite, I'm fueled by it. Maybe it was that. I don't know. But I got out there and I did it. And then when it was over, it was like everything clicked and made sense. So I don't know. I don't know, besides just the idea of the message and the history and making people, I think it was just a combination of emotions and being fed up and being ready to do something as a woman, being told to not take up space, to suddenly be like, I'm going to take up space this way, and to do it. And I don't know. It was like a drug ever since. I've been addicted. I've not been able to rehabilitate myself since. I did try to leave. tried to have a regular job. I tried I tried to not do showbiz full time, and I hated every second of it. And I came right back. So I don't know. I feel like this is how I'm meant to exist, and it just clicked. So I'm not sure how I got there. Just I leapt. I think I just dove right in.
Yeah, it feels like you're doing something important, and you understand that, because showing yourself means you're empowering women, and at least it seems to me every time you do that, piece of you is always there that feels like, okay, I'm doing this for others. It is very, very important. If I don't do this, maybe other people won't, and that way we'll lose this ability to express ourselves. Does that
A
sound
little.
accurate?
I know that I'm not a unique snowflake. I know that I'm not. There's a million other showgirls who can replace me in a heartbeat. I'm not thinking that if I don't do it, no one will. Thankfully, others will and have. But I do feel like this is my artistic channel of all my energy. I feel like this is how I can express myself best, but still be able to make a living. And I feel like too, it's the one time I call the shots, where it's not someone telling me what I can do with my body, but I'm doing it and I'm deciding. And there could be shows that even if I could go down to pasties and panties, I don't do the full act. Or if I want to leave my gloves or stockings on but take off everything else, I do. And I feel like that's part of it, is that self-reclamation in a society where we're told what to do with ourselves and what not to do with ourselves. So I feel like it's selfishly for me just as much as it is for other people. Yeah.
I see. I mean, yeah, it seems like you're in total control of your body. You understand yourself as a person, as a human being, which is very rare. Because I assume many people, I think, would like to do something like that, express themselves, be free. But due to all the stigma surrounding, I don't know, those professions or those type of things, people don't do it. So for those who are listening and might have this idea, listening to you and thinking, maybe I could do something like that, but I'm too fat, or I don't know, I'm black, or I'm just shy. What would you tell them?
I would tell them do it. I mean, your body is just existing in a world that doesn't want us to exist is a revolution. You are a revolution. You are you're magical, and I feel like if you want to, go ahead and try it and see if it's for you. And I feel like while society is telling you to be quiet, go ahead and be that revolution, because just existing and taking up space in the public eye and on stage, or even in cosplay, just in front of a camera or in your costume or at a local convention, go ahead and take up that space. Go ahead and be visible and be seen and just have a good time in a world that's told you to constantly be insecure and to constantly not feel like you're enough or allowed to be there. Go ahead and be there. Do it. Fuck yeah. Oh, am I allowed to swear? I'm sorry. Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, you should say fuck yeah.
Just fucking do it. You just existing is a revolution and an act of rebellion. Just doing it is a huge act of rebellion in our even modern day society, as progressive as we are. I feel like that, and it's also a great way to honor the past for the women that were arrested before us doing this. Yeah.
Amazing. Actually, I mean, I think that it's not even for women.
Oh,
If
yeah.
men are listening to this, I'm sure that men are shy as well, or I'm 100% sure that the same issues of racism, ageism, and choosing people who fit the
Oh my God, all
stereotype.
genders, yes.
It's
All
across genders.
I feel like too there's a huge issue with toxic masculinity in show business, where men have to look like they could save the day at any moment. Like, not everyone needs to look like Captain America, and not everyone needs to be strong or fit this weird narrow fit of what men should be. And I feel like that's one of the reasons I love burlesque too, is I see a lot of male performers or non-binary performers or trans performers of all genders getting out there and doing this. And I love, one of my idols is Ray Gunn, and I really look up to Ray Gunn. He is a black male performer who does burlesque, and he does this Cheshire Cat act and he does this space act that's really cool, where he's a spaceman, and there are these beautiful crystal encrusted costumes, and he wears these beautiful colors of makeup. And he's getting out there and performing burlesque just like anyone else. And it's so amazing to see a man so secure in himself that he can throw all the toxic masculinity of the society out in the window and go out there and be this rock star. And I'm just like, one day I want to perform with you. You're amazing. So Ray Gunn, if you're out there listening, I would love to perform with you or the Stage Door Johnnies one day.
Yeah, Ray Gunn, and I'll Google you as soon as we're done with this, because I'm excited to see the performance.
There's so many good performers out there that are of any gender, but I feel like feminism is for men too, and I think that's why burlesque is for all genders as well. Toxic masculinity is a constant fight that we have to deal with, where men are allowed to see as feminine or weak because they equate it with either comes from a place of homophobia or a place of calling feminism let me rephrase that. When there's toxic masculinity, I think it's because it's coming from a place of internalized homophobia, or it's coming from a place of equating anything femme with weakness, which is just straight up sexist. So when you have those two things, men lose out. Men are missing out on wearing fun dresses and rhinestones. Men are missing out on being able to love their thighs or say, oh, my butt looks cute today. Men miss out on that all the time because of toxic masculinity. Right.
Or even on crying. I mean,
let men have
like
emotions.
That we just
let
have.
men have emotions. Like, I feel like that's why feminism is important, is because it's fighting for men too, to be able to do this, to be able to do what they want, and that's important. I feel very strongly about that. I'm sorry, but yeah, I feel like the gender binaries just need to go.
Yeah. I even remember like the easy thing, like some of the workplaces require men to wear suits. I mean, it's just like a sort of like 1% of what you're talking about, but even this is important. And I remember like I was working one place and I would work in like this basement and I would like to wear jeans because, well, I feel comfortable and nobody sees me. And this lady was so upset, who was like my boss. She would say, why don't you go home and like dress properly for a bank? And I'm like, I'm just working in a basement. What are you talking about, lady? And even this to me is crazy that we live in this. To be like successful, it means you need to like wear a tie and a suit. But I think people should wear whatever they want. They should be with whoever they want. They should do whatever they want. We should choose for ourselves what's good. As long as we don't hurt other people, I think that nothing matters. Please.
Right. I feel very similar. I feel like everyone should be comfortable. And I love seeing this great revolution amongst younger people, who you have straight cis men going, I'm going to wear a skirt today because I feel cute, and I'm going to braid my beard. And I love seeing these things. I think it's one of the reasons why I love TikTok as a social media platform, is I'm seeing young people embrace not caring about society pressuring them to fit into cookie cutters that we no longer need when it comes to gender binaries and gender norms. And I love it. That's one thing too I like about, that's why I loved doing drag when I was younger, or I like doing cosplays where sometimes I will dress up as like John Constantine from comic books, or I'll dress up as like Aizawa from, I have an act as Aizawa from My Hero Academia, the anime.
Oh.
And I think it's great to do things that are outside of that cookie cutter.
Yeah, I agree with you, like 100%. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about not so fun stuff. I also assume there's an other side of the coin of this amazing career of yours is that sometimes you meet people who are angry at themselves and they express it on you. You don't fit into their norms and then they act weirdly. So to shame a little bit those people and for others to understand that this is improper, can you talk about those situations when somebody did something outrageous to you just because you're a performer?
Oh, all the time. Oof. I've experienced my fair share of cyberbullying, of bullying, of gross comments and messages from people on the internet or in person even, just for being in the public eye or being an artist that's visible and taking up space. It's unfortunately, I hate the fact that I say this phrase. It comes with the territory and I'm prepared for it, but I shouldn't have to be, and it shouldn't be part of the job. That's obviously a huge issue in society that happens, but it's a constant thing. I know that it says more about the person saying it. Like if you like with your podcast, if you get cyberbullied because of a podcast that you make, it says more, and it's not that you've done something wrong, it's that they're just being mean to you for the sake of being mean to you, these strangers hiding behind a keyboard. It doesn't say anything about Anatoly. It says so much more about them. And even in person, there's been a lot of people that have said negative things to me, and I honestly always have some kind of clap back where, are you paying a bill of mine tonight? Am I sitting on your face tonight? Then you don't need to have a say in my weight or a say in my body or a say in what I do. Yeah. Unless you're paying my bills, I don't care what you have to say. It says more about the other people than it does about you and their insecurities. However, if I do something wrong or if I do something problematic, I will gladly allow my colleagues or someone to like pull me aside and be like, listen, you did this on stage and it was not okay. Or listen, you said this and that's a microaggression. Okay, cool. Let me learn from that bad experience and me try to be a better person. That happens a lot in show business where you're just constantly trying to be better. You're trying to improve, especially when someone hands you a microphone and you're emceeing a show. Like there's a lot of times where there's always room for improvement. So it's not just for the other people, but also for yourself. But yeah. But it's okay. Nobody can say anything more mean than some of the things I say to myself and my insecurities.
Yeah, I think, and that's important. It's also important to understand that some of those people, they're just trolls. They just say stuff because they're lonely and they just like to say negative stuff. It doesn't mean anything for them or for you. They're not even angry at you. They're just trolls. They just say stuff. And because they have this freedom of sitting in a keyboard and being anonymous, they just do it. So one of the ways to deal with that, and I know some people who are in a public eye do that, just don't read those comments. I mean, if they're toxic and you cannot handle them, I don't read most of the comments. I even don't watch news because it depresses me. Like seeing that everything is wrong in the world, it depresses me. And I like to be happy. I like to have fun. So I just don't watch it. At least that would be my weird approach of dealing with the issue.
If that works for you, then that works. I feel like self-care is super important, and protecting yourself is just as valid as important. I think it's important when you're in the public eye to take time for yourself to like readjust and realign. Like read a good book, go have a nice cup of coffee just by yourself, take some time away from the internet, because in podcast and show business, in burlesque and nerdlesque and cosplay, like in every kind of public eye performance or artistic industry, you're having to constantly be on the internet and constantly monitor in order to make sure that you're hitting the goals that you need to in order to survive. But it's important to take that time away to go ahead, read a good book, go for a walk, tune out, take an hour away from the phone or a couple days if you need to. I'll occasionally do that. I think like once or twice a season I will take stock of my mental health and take stock of how stressed I am, if I have a lot of deadlines or if I have a lot of costumes that I need to like post images of or make sure get seen. I feel like instead of sticking to my phone and hoping for the likes and hoping for the shares and like keeping track of how many hearts I get on an app, I take a day or two off where I go, hey, I'm not gonna be online for a couple of days. If you need me for business, email me, or talk to my business, the contact sheet on my website or something like that. So I take some time away where I literally only do business. I don't do the marketing side. I just take some time away from it just so I can reset myself. And I think it's healthy for people to do that and to sometimes just walk away.
Yeah.
Things that you have to constantly be on top of.
100%. Seems like actually a good tip for people who are struggling, maybe just to get away and just think about it, rethink your life and see if it feels better. And if it doesn't, maybe analyze it further. The other question I have, and this is again pretty controversial topic for any adult entertainer, is that adult entertainment is very intertwined with sex, no matter what you do. So I would assume some people would feel that if you're stripping, that you are available for escort, for example. Did you have any situations, and I'm sure you did, when people would come to you and like ask for sex or something of that sort?
It's important to know that when it comes to, even though I'm up on stage and I'm taking my clothes off, where I'm going down to pasties and panties, or where I'm selling signed 8x10 prints of me nude, I think it's important that people understand that consent is still there, even if I'm a sex worker. There's many different types of sex workers out there. As a stripper and as a content seller and as a full-time naked nerd, I know that I'm a sex worker, and other people, I think they make the assumption that because you are a sex worker, you are not needing consent because they don't see you as human. And I think it's important that we understand that sex workers are human, that performers and artists are human, and that consent still needs to be there. Never make the assumption that just because a performer is working, that they have to be comfortable with you going, hi, I would like this service. You can go ahead and I get a lot of DMs where people will ask, do you do fetish work or do you do dominatrix services? And there's been times that I have done dominatrix work. I have worked a little bit in the fetish industry, but it was all with people asking. Yeah. It was with consent. It was a very streamlined process and very safe for me, the way that it was set up, with security in mind and discretion in mind. But I think when people just show up in your inbox and they send you a dick pic, that's not consent. That's not okay. Don't assume that whether of any gender, don't assume that the artist or sex worker on the other side of that screen, on the other side of that inbox, or on the other side of that stage is DTF at all times. You have to remember that they're still human beings. They still require consent. We're real people. And it's just something where sometimes someone will approach you and it'll be an inappropriate approach versus an appropriate approach. And I will go, no, you need to consider my consent levels here. Let's try that again. And so they approach me differently, or if they overreact negatively, I prepare myself to either block them, not talk to them, or have security remove them from the venue. The one problem with being a female or femme presenting performers is that there's a huge danger to saying no to men, because they feel so entitled to our bodies and so entitled to us that rejection can often lead to us being followed out to our cars, followed to the dressing room, or our addresses are doxed, or they try to follow us to our hotels if we're staying out of state, or find our places to our homes or our day jobs if we have one. There's a huge danger level. I believe just 2 weekends ago, a content warning for death. There was a stripper who worked for a club called Gold Diggers that was shot and killed.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a real thing. This is not new news to us. The rest of us cannot blink an eye. But it's important to think about girls like Pleasure, who died. There's a constant threat of, if I reject this person, will they hurt me? If I reject this person, will they kill me? Or worse.
Yeah.
There's always that in the back of a showgirl's mind. So you have to think about how to handle that. But it's also important to know that you don't deserve to have to deal with that as a performer or as a sex worker. You have to call the shots and even be aggressive about it. I've had security remove people from venues. I've had to block people or take screenshots of the messages they've sent me for rejecting them and save them in a file for the police. It's important to think about the fact that no one is entitled to your body. No one is entitled to you. And you have to remember that, I think, to stay strong in this industry or to stay strong as a sex worker or performer. But I think it's more important that society, cis men in particular, need to understand that you are not entitled to everything. You are not entitled to women's bodies or to getting a yes. So I feel like consent is a huge conversation about that when we think about performers, sex workers, and artists.
For people who would like to offer, I guess, sex to sex workers, but do it in such a way that does not offend them and make sure they're getting consent, making sure everything is good on both sides, how do you think these days they should do it?
I would say if they have a website or a social media, or you're talking to them on their OnlyFans or whatever way that you're talking to them, or even in person, I feel like it's important to remember they're a human being and establish that you know that they're a human being. I love it when a client approaches me and goes, "Hi, can I ask you a question?" "Sure, what's your question, hun?" "I was wondering if I could ask if you offer these services." "Okay, what services are you interested in?" "Okay, this." "No, I don't do it." "Okay, sorry, thanks for letting me ask." "Okay, cool." See how easy that was? Or even like, I feel like it's the simplest thing too. A great thing to think about is at comic book conventions, there's a huge, easy, simple conversation that happens every day at a comic book convention. You see a cosplayer in a beautiful costume and she looks amazing. She worked really hard on her corset and really hard on her wig and her makeup's on point. And you want to take a picture of her because A, you think she's beautiful, and B, she looks just like the comic book character you're in love with. You go up and you don't just take a picture or grab them and take a selfie with them or put their arm around their waist and take a picture with them. You go up and you treat them like a human being, not a prop. I feel like people need to approach sex work like the following cosplay conversation at a convention. "Hi, I really like your cosplay. You did a great job. Thank you. Can I please take a picture of you or with you?" "Of course." "Can I put my arm around you?" "No, I'm not comfortable with that." "Okay, can I still take the picture?" "Sure." Click. Picture. Done. Look, everyone's happy. Like, there's such simple conversations, and people think it's hard, and it's not. I think the people that think it's hard are the ones that, I understand anxiety is a thing, and I understand that this maybe sound a little bit ableist to assume that everyone can have this conversation, but I feel like being direct but polite is so easy and so simple. Like, that conversation happened, and sometimes too you might find out, like, when I stopped doing fetish work, like fetish shows, and I stopped doing a little bit of dominatrix stuff, I will get messages of like, "Hi, will you dom me?" No, I'm not in the fetish industry anymore. However, thanks for asking because you were so polite. Here is someone I can refer you to, or I can take your contact information and refer it to a sex worker I know that might have availability for clients. And you might meet someone that's so much better and a better fit for you. I feel like it's important to always make sure the ball is in the sex worker's court or in the cosplayer's court, or that it's always that if you want something, it's important to make sure that the other person feels comfortable with it. And so the ball should always be in their court, and you should always respect that. And I feel like it's such a simple conversation. Okay.
And being nice, goes such a long way, like everywhere.
Right.
Like whatever you do, if you're just being nice, and if you made a mistake, you can just apologize and be nice again.
Right. And sometimes
and doors will open to you.
Right. It's such a simple thing. Like, and all the time I'll get like, hey, I want to meet you. No, I have a show. I'm sorry. Or no, I don't meet people that I don't know after shows. I'm sorry. Oh, fuck you, bitch. No, that's not how you respond.
Wow.
You are now thrown out of the venue. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You are done, sir. And I feel like it's this sense of entitlement to never being rejected that happens. So, but yeah, being nice is such a long way. And sometimes you'll reject someone. And then they'll be polite about it. And then later down the road, you'll see, hey, I'm looking for someone who sells signed prints and of this character. And I'll be like, hi, I have that character. Would you like me to throw in a free photo for you? Because you were so polite in the past. Sometimes it's nice to like just be nice and you'll get rewarded with it later on. It's such an easy system. It's so simple. I don't understand why people don't get this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a very, very good tips for people who are listening. Yeah, don't be jerks, and you guys gonna get whatever you want. It's just a different way. Just approach it as, well, if I'm gonna be a jerk, there's not a lot of chances for me to get there. But if I'm gonna be nice, it might take me longer, and it might take some more effort, but the results are much, much higher.
Yeah, and if it's just a straight no, even if you don't get a reward down the line, it's okay. No one's obligated to give you a reward. No one's obligated to say yes to you. And I think that it's important that people understand that it's not always yes. It's okay to say no, and it's okay for performers and sex workers to say no. It's okay for people to say no to you. And I feel like it's important that people understand that no is a thing. It exists. You're not always obligated to get a yes.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think we covered a lot of very, very important topics. I did not expect this, but I'm really happy we did, actually. This is why I love this podcast, because we can just go on different tangents, and I think what you are saying is very, very important. So thank you very much for this.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
The one question I like to ask my guests, a lot of people might be intrigued by what you're saying. You have a very nice voice, that's one, and your story is very, very interesting. So I'm sure people will want to know more about you. Can you tell us how they can do it?
Of course. So on any social media platform, from Instagram to Facebook to TikTok to Cosplay World, anything like that, you can find me at Lady Mekaella, LadyMekaella, or through the hashtag Fangirl with Fangirls or Naked Nerd. And if you don't find just me, you might find a plethora of other performers to follow that I work with that I will gladly support and do shout outs for as well. So if you don't find me, you'll find someone else that might be a better fit for you. But you can also find me at LadyMekaellaDeMure.com or policingmuses.com, which is the website for my upcoming book that is available at the end of October. And that is my History of Pasties and Merkins book about everything from burlesque dancers getting arrested and girls getting arrested for swimsuits to FOSTA and the Free the Nipple movement on the line, and pretty much about how women's bodies are policed in the arts at all times. And it's got some great interviews with some living legends and even some contemporary performers who've experienced their bodies being policed with law enforcement and other situations. So yeah, that comes out with Barnes & Noble in October. And then anywhere else online, you'll probably find me.
Wow. I really look forward to reading. I like to read books, and I definitely will read this one. It sounds like there's a lot of important stuff to know. So, yeah, I'll get the book, and I'll put everything else in a show notes so you guys can check it out. I also will put a YouTube link to the example performance of Lady Mekaella, which I actually liked a lot, so you guys can check it out as well. And yeah, that's about it. So thank you very much for taking your time. It was a blast. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. This was fun. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to listen to your other podcasts.
And for everyone listening, hope you guys enjoyed this conversation with Lady Mekaella De Mure. And I have just one ask for you guys. If you enjoyed this and you think it brought you value, it will be very, very cool if you go and review this podcasting, wherever you're listening to it, whether iTunes, Spotify, anywhere. If you think it's good, just please leave me a review. It allows me to spread it to more and more people. And if you want to hang out with the guests of the show, with the fans of the show, please go to reddit.r/The Unusual Job Show. We all are there. We're ready to talk to you. And I'll see you next one. Bye-bye.